hope that they are your intercessors.
I need them.
My name is Nelson Makanda. I am the chairman of this selection panel, and let me say that we are grateful that you took note of our advert and demonstrated your interest by application. And I would like to congratulate you for being shortlisted for the same, and that's why you are here today. I want to invite my colleagues here to introduce themselves. You most likely have a pen and a notebook so that you can use as and when you need. Linda, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Biko.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
My name is Linda Kiome. I am the Vice Chair of this panel. I want to take this opportunity to welcome you for your interview session. Karibu sana.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now, I don't know whether I'll know how to pronounce.
Give it a shot.
𝐶𝐚𝐢𝐤𝐨.
𝐶𝐚𝐢𝐤𝐨. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Naitwa Andrew Tanui, mwanachama wa jopo hili la uteuzi, na nataka nikukaribisha. Karibu.
Asante.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
Caroline Kituku, karibu sana.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Paloshe.
Good afternoon, Prof.
I pronounced it right?
Yes, you did.
My name is Adam Solo. I'm a member of the selection panel.
My pleasure.
Good afternoon, Madam.
Good afternoon, sir.
My name is Nicodemus Bore, na karibu sana.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, fellows.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Fatuma Ali Saman, a member of the panel. Please welcome.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Tobiko Paloshe.
Good evening, ma'am.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
My name is 𝐏𝐚𝐥𝐨𝐬𝐢𝐤, and I am a member of the panel.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Tobiko.
Good afternoon, sir.
My name is 𝐓𝐴NCE, and I'm a member of this selection panel. I learn your name as we move.
I pray so. Thank you
Thanks so much. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Now, Madam Paloshe, will come to you. The desire is to get to know you. And as we do that, you help us relate who you are with the position that you're applying for and why you think you're suitable for that position. Let us know if you have any membership in a professional society and if you have any award. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the distinguished panel. It's my honor to meet all of you. Like you have heard, my name is 𝐶𝐚𝐢𝐤𝐨 Paloshe Tobiko. I am an elections manager of over 15 years and counting, and I am a trained communications person with a bachelor's degree in communication from Daystar University. I also hold a master's degree from the Institute of Diplomacy and International Studies at the University of Nairobi. My master's is in diplomacy. I hold a few other credentials, certifications from various institutions in the electoral-related fields. Went to secondary school in Kericho, having schooled the elementary years of primary school in Kajiado, where I grew up. Chair, my relationship with elections, governance and elections management started in 2007, which was my first time to visit a polling station. I visited purely out of curiosity because as someone who was a candidate and I was going to show my support. And the scene is yet to leave my mind. What I saw at the polling station got me thinking, there has got to be a different way of doing things. I saw chaos, I saw disorganization with papers all over. You couldn't tell who was in charge of the polling station. And from that purely chance interaction or meeting with what I would later on get to know was an organized field of elections management, I developed interest in elections management. And when in 2010, the IEBC, the Interim Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, was put in place, I put in my application. and I was successful. I was recruited as a constituency elections coordinator and posted to work in Kajiado North. At the time, Kajiado North was not what it is today. Kajiado North today is purely what we know as Route 126. At the time, Kajiado North started all the way from near Naivasha, Mai Mahiu, a place called 𝐓𝐨𝐴𝐤𝐤𝐸, or what you perhaps loosely would know as 𝐓𝐴𝐤𝐸𝐸 Kidong. Started right from there, the first polling station would be there, and all the way to a place called Pakase in Magadi at the border of Kenya and Tanzania. If you remember the story of Babwa Loliondo, it was literally just across the road from one of our stations. And so my posting to work in Kajiado North was practically, literally baptism by fire, but I must admit that I learned a great deal. And whereas I did not think I would last long in elections management, I actually developed an interest. And I must mention that among the people that trained us in elections management is the Honorable Kukimuli, and it was quite an exposure. Kajiado North at the time was not just vast in size, but it was extremely heated politically. It was very heated politically. I remember the then member of parliament calling my chairman at the time, Ahmed Isaac Hassan, and asking him if there was wisdom in posting a small girl to Kajiado North. At the time, of course, I was smaller both in size and in age, and the honorable member of parliament thought it was not very wise. But thank God for the confidence that Ahmed Isaac Hassan had in the staff. He assured the member of parliament that I would be able to handle Kajiado North. And true to his word, I did handle Kajiado North very well. I was able to conduct the 2010 referendum. I was able to conduct, I was lucky to be one of the constituencies that was picked to carry out a mock election, because after the promulgation of the 2010 constitution, the commission saw it fit to carry out a mock election in some constituencies to try out the practicability, how possible it was for us to hold 6 elections in one day. And Kajiado North was one such constituency. And so I got to experience firsthand what it was to carry out an expanded 6-ballot election on the same day. Sadly, in 2012, we lost the then member of parliament, and I conducted a by-election again in Kajiado North. And I must admit that all these experiences and these exposures have over time honed and equipped my knowledge in both elections management, among other things. Kajiado North was very politically charged, and I would get to experience the temperatures, particularly being from the community. I had not exactly experienced or even known what clan I came from until I was posted to Kajiado North. During boundary delimitation, it was made very clear that I belonged to a clan. I had grown up knowing I'm just, I'm child of the community. But then during boundary delimitation, it became very clear that there was, besides other considerations, there was the issue of clanism. Needless to mention, I was able to maneuver all those dynamics, and we had a very successful boundary delimitation in Kajiado North that gave birth to 2 additional constituencies, that is Kajiado East, that was largely hived off Kajiado North and some parts of Kajiado Central, and also Kajiado West, which was purely hived out of Kajiado North constituency. Mr. Chairman, after the 2012 boundary delimitation, I was posted to Limuru constituency, where I returned for the 2013 general election. Limuru constituency was largely a good place to work because literacy levels high, people are knowledgeable. It was a good place to work. It was not as tough, and of course in size it was relatively small. From Limuru constituency in 2012, I returned for the general election of 2013, and the following year, 2014, Mr. Chair, I was deployed at the head office. I was actually promoted and taken to the headquarters to serve as manager in the office of the chairperson and also as personal assistant to the then chairperson, Mr. Ahmed Isaac Hassan. My posting there literally opened my eyes to a totally different dynamic of elections management. I got to interact with policy. That was the first time I interacted with policy, because serving in the office of the chair and being personal assistant to the chair, it meant that I went through both management papers, committee papers, and sometimes I was privy to a number of classified discussions at the plenary. that opened my eyes to really what happened behind scenes, because at the constituency level, yours is to wait for a past policy and instruction and just implement. And so having getting that opportunity to serve in the office of the chairperson opened yet another field for me. And soon after, in 2015, after the chairman noticed my desire to learn and to know more about elections, the East Africa community put together a team of election experts from various East Africa countries. And what they used to do, they called it the pre-election expert mission. I got an opportunity to serve in one such mission to Burundi in 2015. I served in the pre-election expert mission in Burundi, where our main terms of reference was basically to assess the preparedness of that country to hold elections. That exposed me to a regional, to the regional dynamics of carrying out an election, of conducting an election. I also was lucky enough to serve in such a mission, such a similar mission in Uganda and in Tanzania. At this point, I must admit that I had gotten completely, hooked to the field of elections management and governance at large. My last such regional posting was in 2019 when I served under the African Union as part of the technical team that was offering technical support to the Electoral Commission of Malawi during their 2019 tripartite elections. Chair, at the headquarters, I served as personal assistant to the chairman, and as soon as the Ahmed Isaac-led commission exited, I was posted to serve as a manager field services in 2017. That would be the first time I got to serve outside of elections, where the rubber meets the road, now that I'm at the headquarters. But in 2017, not very clear what I needed to do because I was in field services, and field services was not a fully established office. It was not very clear what the terms of what the job description was for that particular office. But in 2017, what I did, I put together a small team, purely my own initiative. I put together a team that had someone from legal, someone from ICT, someone from operations, that is DVRO, and someone from HR. And what we did, I approached some donors. We got a little money, and what we did, we put together what would be the similitude of a call center, basically to supplement what the call center was doing. But this particular one, we called it the Operation Support Unit. What we were doing was offering real-time support to the field officers. So if any field officer had a challenge, all they needed to do was to call the Operation Support Unit. You might want to call it a rapid response unit, and we offered that support. That share was my own personal initiative. It was nowhere in any of the management papers. All I did was to approach the CEO, sold out my idea, and we were able to do that. Before 2017 was over, unfortunately, of course, the general election, the presidential election was nullified, and there was need to have a fresh presidential election. Sadly, one of the county elections managers had a really rough time and had been almost abused in the field. But then there was need to have a fresh presidential election, and there was need to have someone go and serve in Kilifi. In one of the sittings with commissioners, they were wondering, so who do we send to Kilifi? And I said, I'll go. And I remember the commissioner who was then in charge of HR wondering, are you sure you will hack it? You've seen what your colleague has gone through. But I went to Kilifi for the fresh presidential election, and I had, it was challenging, yes, but we were able to return for the fresh presidential elections chair. I have also served as manager commission services, which is where I am currently. Now, manager commission services is basically, you are personal assistant to all the commissioners. So you're no longer just an assistant to the chair, but you're personal assistant to all the commissioners. Serving as a manager commission services gave me yet another opportunity to closely serve with commissioners, interact with them, see some plenary decisions, committee papers. At that point, Chairman, that's when I started thinking, maybe I am ripe to be commissioner. I've given it a shot before, and this is my second shot. I believe, Chair, I am ready to serve at a higher level, not just because I have this 15 years of experience, but because I believe I I have a granular understanding of the institution that is IEBC. I know the pinpoints. I have served at the constituency. I have served at a county. I have served at various levels at the headquarters. I know exactly where it hurts us the most. And I thought I would put myself forth and if I find favor with this committee, get an opportunity to serve at a policy level. So Chair, basically in introduction, that's who I am. And that's why I'm here.
Thank you. Karibu sana. I want to ask Linda to ask you some questions. Linda, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Tobiko, out of all these experiences working at IEBC, which one in particular was the toughest? The one that made your leadership skills be tried and tested? And please share with this panel about that one experience.
Thank you, ma'am. I will cite two. Serving in the office of the chairperson meant that I literally had to experience everything the chairman was going through. And I had to experience the good, the bad, and the ugly. As a personal assistant to the chair, you cannot decide which experiences to share. That particular experience for me did not just, serving as his personal assistant, did not just prepare me for leadership roles, but it opened my eyes to know how best to handle differences and how to separate myself from what is happening. Watching that particular group being banded out of office was a very difficult time for me. And yet we had to put up a brave face because there was need for us to remain strong. The chairman had made it very clear that he needed to protect the secretariat, and so we had to remain strong and basically just, put your emotions aside and go through this. That for me is one experience that I couldn't ask for a better, training school or training ground for leadership at whatever capacity. The other one was Kajiado North constituency. Kajiado North constituency brought to life a number of things that I had not been exposed to. I did not know that just being from my community wasn't enough, that suddenly it mattered what clan you came from, and suddenly you needed to know out of these applicants who is from where. But I'm proud of one thing. It did not matter to me. All that mattered was the qualifications. Are you qualified? Whether you come from clan A or clan B, or indeed not even from that particular community. And it sharpened my judgment. It sharpened my judgment because I would know that this one feels like they have access to me because I'm from a specific clan. So those two experiences, ma'am, I would cite those two as having been the biggest training ground for me.
After experiencing that, did it change your perspective in how you view the elections and how the elections were being conducted at the time? And now coming over to this other side, what will you do differently as a commissioner?
Yes, one thing, let me cite the experience of serving as a personal assistant of the then chairman, Ahmed Isaac Hassan. I think one of the things that experience prepared me for, I know for a fact that elections management is not only a very lonely field, but it could as well be a death to someone's career. And I applied for this job fully aware of the fact that it could just be, ushering myself to an end of a career in elections management. But then you count the cost and you carry your cross. So yes, that one has prepared me for that, and I'm fully aware of that fact. But most importantly, I'm aware of the fact that as a commissioner, or indeed any elections manager, your fidelity has got to be to nothing else and no one else other than the Constitution and the people of Kenya. Number one. Number two, Kajiado North opened my eyes to learn to appreciate the dynamics of this country. I realized that it's not just that particular constituency where clans matter, but there are other constituencies that have the same dynamics. Given that situation or confronted with such a situation, I think I would know I'm better prepared to handle the dynamics of any constituency, having worked from that particular cosmopolitan constituency.
Okay, thank you very much. And I wish you all the very best. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I want to invite 𝐏𝐚𝐥𝐸 to ask you some questions. Carol, please.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Biko,
Yes, ma'am.
I think I'll not ask you about the mandate of the IBC because I'm sure that you are versed with that. So let's talk about the future of the IBC.
About
The future.
the future.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So the report of the Joint Parliamentary Select Committee on IBC proposed several areas for reform that would improve the electoral processes. Could you walk us through some of those reforms and what they mean, and should you become successful, how you'd interact with those proposals?
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. I think one of the things that to me speaks about hope for the IEBC is the fact that this particular call was put out and so many people put themselves out there. And not just so many people, but very many members of the commission. Key among the proposals that was made by that particular joint committee was, or rather is, the need to stagger the recruitment of commissioners. Allow me to speak about that because it's very close to my heart. I totally agree with the idea of staggering the recruitment of commissioners or having commissioners onboarding at different times. But I have an even better suggestion of how to do this, because whereas we had an opportunity to have done that with the first one, we lost out on it. But perhaps what we should consider as a country is actually having the proposal, and I pray that it finds buy-in, to have internals at any one time. There's a recruitment. If we are not, because we have lost the opportunity to stagger, could we have at least one or two internal member of staff who will bear not just the institutional memory, but who will make it easy for the commissioners that are coming to onboard. In that case, because I believe that the spirit behind the proposal to stagger the recruitment was so that there's institutional memory. If we have a member of staff at any one time being recruited, then we have a repository of that knowledge, and it becomes a lot easier. It becomes a lot easier to onboard the rest of the commissioners. How? Let me speak a bit about our processes. There was, and forgive me if I'm wrong on this, I think there was a proposal. There was a proposal to have registration as a voter being tied into acquisition of an ID. I could be wrong. I don't know if that is where I'm reading this, but it's definitely a proposal that would be welcome to me. It would be welcome because then it would reduce, one, the cost of voter registration. Number two, it would make it a lot easier for us to onboard people that are attaining the mandate, the age of majority. Yes. Did I miss something? Yeah.
Is that all? All right. So there was a proposal, particularly on the ensuring the independence of the observers.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And one of the proposal was that there was need for a legal framework that would guide the monitoring of elections by observers. What would you think the commission would need to implement that particular recommendation?
Right. My apologies, I'd missed that out. The commission might not need much to implement that. Actually, what we need, we already have a department, our Department of Partnership, that deals with observers, both long-term and short-term. Perhaps what we need to do as an institution is to ensure that observers are allowed. Is a word allowed? No, but observers become a part of the process. Every part of the electoral cycle, they are involved, and these observers ought to be brought on board very early on in the day, so that we do not have them coming to observe tallying of results and they did not observe registration, they did not observe the pre-electoral activities. What the commission perhaps needs to do is we need to tighten that particular aspect, because it's already under partnership, and ensure, but more than just ensuring that observers are onboarded in every phase of the electoral cycle, also have them ensure that they give reports, and these reports are consumed by both the commission and the public.
industry, there was also proposal on the need to adopt electronic voter registration, voting and electronic voting and biometric voter registration. What would be your views on this? Should you become a member of the commission, particularly on the voting, on the electronic voting?
On biometric voter registration, we already have made great strides in that area, right from 2010 when we piloted BVR and moved away from OMR to BVR, we have made strides. But let's talk about electronic voting. Whereas that is where we should be heading as a country, I am not very sure it's something that can be implemented immediately. It ought perhaps to be gradually implemented, and I think the commission is on the right track on this because we already have embraced voter registration, biometric voter registration to be precise. We have electronic voter identification, and we have the transmission of electronic transmission of results. Maybe to better it is to expand it so that we do not just transmit presidential, but be able to transmit a little more than that. And we could purely pilot on a few constituencies, what it would like to have a fully electronic system. It can be piloted and we can roll it out in phases. One of the main challenges, of course, is the issue of financing. And given the fact that these gadgets will only serve for a certain phase, and before that you need to improve them. However, I think it's something that we ought to pilot, and should I find favor with this commission, I would insist that we try and pilot it. Let's see how it works. And with the population that we have right now, particularly the young people, it becomes a lot easier to introduce or to bring in pure electronic voting.
Thank you very much. I wish you well, and over to you, Chair.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I want to invite Koki to ask you some questions.
Thank you very much, Chair. Madam Tobiko.
Yes, ma'am.
You have clearly a granular understanding of IEBC, and I listened very carefully to you as you explained the two areas that influenced or drove you to enhanced your passion and desire to work for election management. And I think you have done quite well in that area.
Thank you, ma'am.
I wanted to ask, we have been grappling with trust deficit. We have also been grappling with the issue of lack of confidence in the IEBC. Yet the people we have been having these interviews with have given us so much hope. And they speak like it is another IEBC than the one we hear on the side. So I want to ask you, given a chance to become a member of IEBC, what are the 3 important things you will do to address the image of IEBC, to enhance the trust and to enhance confidence so that we can be able to achieve our collective objective as a country?
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you. Allow me to address the one on trust deficit. One of the things I think we need to make peace with as a country is that in any given election, there will be a winner and there will be a loser, granted. And if we start from the knowledge that going into an election, you could either win or lose, it prepares those that will lose to actually be, how do I put it, to be gracious in the loss and to not look for scapegoats. Because what has battered the commission, and I speak as one of them, is the continuous battering by the political class. When a politician loses in an election, whether a candidate, let me use candidate so that I'm at peace with my brothers from the political parties. When a candidate loses elections, the first person to throw stones at is the commission. And I wish we were throwing stones at the commission, not because someone has lost, but because the commission has failed in terms of processes. I think we need as a country to separate processes from the outcome of the result. If we have failed in the process, then you can blame us as an institution. And so to address this, what I would propose, Ambassador, and we already have started, by the way, we have started a program where we conduct elections in schools, we give talks in schools, both primary and secondary. And what we do when we conduct an election in school, we tell all the candidates, prepare 2 speeches. Prepare a winning speech so that should you win, this is the one you'll give, and prepare a conceding speech. Should you lose, you must also, and we go through the speeches to make sure that there are no insults hurled at your opponent if you lose. What we are doing is trying to inculcate a culture in the younger generation, not so much because we have given up on the older population, or perhaps that is close, that's almost really where we are, because the older population is convinced if I lost an election, it's because IBC did. It's never because a candidate failed to do. And if we were to sit down and have a candid conversation with candidates, we would actually point and tell them, you lost because of ABCD. Hardly has it got anything to do with the processes of the commission. So number one, inculcate a culture of acceptance of results without necessarily looking to scapegoat. Number two, I would build on voter education. What voter education does, it prepares the electorate. It actually opens their minds to know that this is the process. You can literally audit the process. And once you audit the process, you'd be able to know that on this particular failure, it is IBC. But on this one, I blame the candidate. So I would enhance voter education, and I hope I'll get an opportunity to talk about how I would propose that. And I would also really go big on stakeholder engagement. Stakeholder, because the same political class, independent candidates, and the electorate, those are our key stakeholders. I would engage them and look for people that can actually be our ambassadors to help and educate the populace to know that, you know, judge IBC based on ABCD, make a tick list. Did IBC achieve this? Were their processes okay? Were there materials at the polling station? Were the stations opened on time? So that we separate the outcome of the result or the loss of an election from IEBC. If we have contributed to that, then yes, we can be judged based on that. But if our processes are beyond par, then let every other stakeholder carry their cross. So I would be looking at inculcating a culture of acceptance of results. I would go big on voter education, and I would really enhance our stakeholder engagement.
Thank you so much, Madam Tobiko, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Chair, thank you.
I welcome FCPA Tanui to ask you some questions. FCPA, please.
Thank you, Chair. Paloshe.
Yes, sir.
Isaka-san, in his book, you know, one of the things he observed is that when he was leaving IBC, I think in 2017, which you've alluded to, you know, as he was issuing the press statement, there was staff who were behind him and they were shedding tears. So were you one of them?
I didn't stand behind him. I locked myself up in my office and cried my heart out. Yes, I did. But I hid in the office.
Yes, I hear you through that experience. Now you've said you know where it hurts most at IEBC. So where does it hurt most at IEBC?
Thank you. Thank you, Bonet Tanui. This is where it hurts most. Two things I will point out. At the policy level, we develop policy and almost detach ourselves, now the policy developers, from the person who's going to implement the policy. My experience as a returning officer, both at the constituency and at the county, is that we are almost disjointed. It's almost like there's two institutions. We have the policy makers who often, and I really plead that this doesn't come out as pointing fingers, who often do not know exactly how this policy will affect the person implementing. So one, it hurts exactly where the rubber meets the road, because it comes out as there is Commission A and Commission B. What I would propose to address this is to get the consumer and the person who's going to implement this policy to be involved, even if it's just in a small way. Let's involve them so that so that we make them own those policies. It doesn't look like I have received this and I'm going to implement. Allow me to be a part of it. And I dare say that we have an extremely knowledgeable field staff, very knowledgeable, very intelligent. Given an opportunity, they would definitely contribute to policy better than we have been doing.
You had said two.
Oh, you wanted two?
No, you.
Oh, I say two.
Yeah,
Okay.
you say two.
I can give you a second one. Where it hurts the most is when the same people that are policy makers have wrangles within boardrooms, and the field staff that have absolutely no idea what is happening in the boardroom have to walk around with the shame of knowing that baba na mama wanapigana. And the ones in the constituency are the ones that bear the brunt. Why? Because the person known in the constituency, flesh and blood, is that constituency elections coordinator. Perhaps the best they see of commissioners is on TV. Okay, so when we have wrangles in the boardroom, the person who walks around having to offer an explanation, often to things that they know nothing about, is that person at the ground level. That, sir, is where it really, really hurts.
Now, Palosha, you have a unique advantage. You've told us you are the PA to Isaka-san.
Yes, sir.
And now you've said you are the PA to all the commissioners.
I was, yeah.
You are. Or even you've said you are the manager commission
services still,
which is like PA to all the. So you have actually been operating at the commission level.
Yes.
And actually you're saying the challenge is at this commission level, or this commissioners where the policy issues are not being cascaded or the field officers are not being involved. Appreciating. There was a judgment, I think the ESCC judgment, where they said commission is actually the commissioners.
That's true.
That they can, and even I believe you are aware, even now IBC, there are some things you are saying you can't do because there are no commissioners. Meaning commission is the commissioners.
Yes, sir.
That means, and also the fact that commissioners are full-time, isn't it?
Yeah.
They are there like you, 8 to 5.
Yes, sir.
And they are full-time. Unlike other jurisdictions where I think 1 or 2 commissioners are full-time, others are part-time. So how will you address this issue of policy, the rupture, the lack of officers being involved, and yet it is commission, the commission is the commissioners. They are both policy makers, they are the institution. They can never be IBC without the commissioners. So how would you, with your experience now as a peer to all the commissioners, how differently will you address that issue and the challenges that you have had, appreciating that if you are a commissioner, you are actually the commission?
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. One of the things we need to know as a commission, now I'm already assuming that you will give me the job. So one of the things the commission needs to make peace with is that the buck stops with the commission. The buck stops with the commission, number one. Number two, there is need for the commissioners to internalize the commission charter to get to know where the boundary lines are drawn. Where does oversighting stop and where does policy formulation stop so that policy implementation can begin? The challenge is often the lines are blurred. And the lines are blurred because commissioners, the same thing you have alluded to, being full-time is a challenge. And perhaps it's about time we had a conversation as a country. Do we really need commissioners full-time? Do we really need commissioners full-time? That is a conversation we need to have. Number two, do we really need, does it serve the country, the interest of the country, and indeed the interest of the institution that is IEBC, to have the CEO, who's the accounting officer, serving as the secretary to the commission? Is it perhaps about time we separated these two so that secretary to the commission is different from the accounting officer? Maybe these are conversations we need to have, but ultimately it boils down to one thing: an appreciation of where my role stops and the role of the secretariat begins. But because we have, the full-time commissioners, and unfortunately sometimes not very aware of where the role of oversight, where the role of strategic direction ends, so that the other one can begin, we experience the challenges that we're experiencing, and which of course every Kenyan knows about. Maybe, sir, we need to have a conversation about having not full-time commissioners.
Now, you mentioned that the field officers are not, may not be involved in some of the policy decisions. And we've had a good number of your colleagues here. And we've also we've known that there are committees in IEBC where they serve the plenary. And we are being told when a management paper is being introduced, it is started at the lower level, then it is discussed at management level, then it goes to committees, and then finally to plenary for approval. So what are you saying? That structure is not existing?
I pray I will still have a job after this, but the truth of the matter is that there is the ideal and there is what happens. What happens is what I have just alluded to. We don't involve field officers to the extent to which we actually should. We may pick a few to act as representatives, but there are 290. If we picked 3, is that representative? I don't think so. And that is a conversation we need to have now as an institution, at the policy making decision. How best do we involve them? And it's doable. It's doable. It's just to let them know that the commission is working on policy A, B, and C. We send out communication, we do conference calls, and have them input, and their input taken in seriously so that it can then inform the management paper that goes to the committee. So the ideal is what we would want to paint, but then there's also the truth of what happens.
I wish you well.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think you still have your job.
Thank you, sir.
Let's ask Ms. Sati here to.
Thanks so much, Chair. Tobiko.
Yes, sir.
You know how difficult it is to prepare 2 speeches when you know that after losing, the winner takes everything. That's how difficult it will be. So we'll address the issue of the structure, or rather the system of elections in Kenya. That's for another day.
Thank you.
Now, if you are given an opportunity and you are an IEBC commissioner, please let this panel understand what are some of the things you'll be able to do in preparation for the 2027 general elections in terms of priority. And just mention some of the things that are actually is the role of IEBC to do, but because of time, it cannot be done before the 2027 general elections.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Top on my mind, of course, of what we should have done or ought to have been done, but as time barred, is the issue of boundary delimitation. That has since been overtaken by time. We ought to have done that last year. Should we have done it before the 2027 election? Yes, because there's an elephant in the room that we need to address. We have constituencies that, 27 of them that are pending. We do not know the future of them. I don't know what directive will be given or what advice will be given to the commission in as far as boundary delimitation is concerned, because that one is now out of, it's not for us to decide. But what I would do in preparation for 2027, as soon as the commission is in place, they ought to hit the ground running, look at the policy papers that are pending, and look at the policy papers in matter of priority. Which ones directly speak to 2027? I do not know, because I don't have the advantage of knowing exactly what is pending, but I would look at them and pick what directly informs or speaks to 2027. Prioritize that. Prioritize the issue of the ongoing registration, which we haven't been doing, and there are definitely people that have acquired IDs and turned 18 and above. Have them registered. Have the register cleaned up, an audit of the register very, very quickly. Perhaps we shouldn't wait until 6 months to an election. Maybe we ought to have it cleaned, and then that for me is really, that's my personal conviction. We ought to have the register audited. If we can have it audited at least twice before 2027, that would suffice. Number two, put together a committee or a workforce that will oversee the implementation of 2027. I say a workforce because I believe that taking a project approach to management of elections makes it a lot easier and flawless. If we take that approach, we will be able to single out, of course, informed by the electoral officers on the ground, what are the things that we need to do. Identify from every constituency. Do we still have polling stations, or some of them have been washed away? What do we need to do? Do we need to do fresh mapping? Number three, quickly secure the issue of the National Tallying Center and put together a team that manages the National Tallying Center. Agree on how and the flow of activities at the National Tallying Center. This is very close to my heart because sometimes the officers will do a very good job at the constituencies and the counties, and then when it gets to the National Tallying Center, things may not go as well as planned. But if we were to put that in place in good time, fully aware of the fact that at the end of the activity at the constituency or the county, it ends up at the National Tallying Center. That, in my opinion, sir, are some of the things I think we need to do as a matter of urgency.
Thanks so much, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir.
Do you think we still need a National Tallying Center?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We will need one, but we'll manage it well. You give me the job, we'll manage it very well. Yeah.
Okay. Why do you think so when the results are as that announced at the polling station?
Because whereas results are announced and transmitted from the polling station, there is a need for the results to come to the National Tallying Center for a few things to be done. Remember, the returning officer for the national election is the chairperson, who's based at the National Tallying Center. So these results must get to this person who's the national returning officer for him to be able to declare. And for him, before he can declare, there are a few things he must ensure. One, that the person who's been declared president, or rather the person who's been elected president, has garnered the requisite numbers as per the Constitution, and that can only be done after consolidating all the constituency results at the National Tallying Center. Only then are we able to establish if the requisite constitutional mandate for one to be declared has been met.
This cannot be done at Anniversary Towers?
Anniversary Towers is tricky. It's very tricky because one, it's not our building. Number two, there are other offices that are involved there. And the offices at Anniversary Towers, Bona Chairman, are small. A National Tallying Center has to be Bomas of Kenya or an equivalent, really big, so that we also accommodate stakeholders. Remember, it's not an exclusive business of the Commission. It has to be open to other stakeholders.
Okay. Fatuma, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Madam Tobiko.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you familiar with the recommendations, or rather the highlights that were made by the 2022 post-election evaluation report?
In a way, yes. I have skimmed through it. Yes, I have an idea.
What are some of the things you can remember?
One of the things is the issue of voter education. There was an observation that voter education ought to start early, and funding for voter education should come early in time so that it starts in good time. We don't start voter education in January 2027 when the election is in August of the same year. There was the issue of transmission, or was it transmission of results? I think there was the issue of transmission of results. No, it was not transmission of results.
Let me give you some, so
Yes.
that now I can go to my question.
Thank you.
One was on late and inconsistent engagement with critical groups.
Yes.
There was one on lack of a structured platform for sustained dialogue, minimal involvement of youth and PWDs in planning stages, communication breakdown between IEBC and political parties. So considering these four highlights, what strategies would you put in place if given an opportunity to address these four critical areas?
Thank you, ma'am. I'm looking at the recommendations, and they boil down to one thing. They boil down to voter education and stakeholder engagement. Because if you look at structured platform breakdown of communication, it boils down to a gap in voter education and stakeholder engagement. What would I do? What I would do, and this would be my proposal, I would quickly have our communication policy revamped. We have a policy that was developed in 2013 and is still the one we are using. We need to urgently, as a matter of priority, need to revamp our communication policy so that it can take on board the developments and the dynamics, the changes that have happened in the communication industry. That is number one. And why I need this, or I would propose that this communication policy is revamped, is so that it helps us to implement what I would want to propose, which is to start early on communication, on voter education. What we need to do as an institution is to have an inexpensive way of educating the public. If we had YouTube channels for each of the counties early on, that will not be expensive for us, so we will take away the usual struggles of financing. If we had YouTube channels for every county, then what we would do is have these YouTube channels. The county elections manager, with this revamped policy, is guided on how to set up the same and to control the dialogues, so that we are able, what we would do, assuming we had one for Nairobi County, for instance, what would happen is we would have the highlight being on the 17 constituencies of Nairobi County. We would have the political class in Nairobi County participating, because then it would start in good time. So we would have all of them participating in good time. We would have the youth, and perhaps another way to engage the youth is to engage content creators, people they look up to, have that particular class of people fully trained so that they're able to disseminate the right information. The young people would perhaps listen to these content creators more than they would to me. But my first proposal is revamp our communication and partnership policy. Number two, establish inexpensive ways of disseminating information. And one such inexpensive way of disseminating information is to set up YouTube channels for each county. The Election Commission of India, the Election Commission of India has done very well in the use of the social media space. And one of the things they use is those YouTube channels. If we were to adopt that, for as long as there is guideline, because now we have a revamped communication policy, it becomes easy to onboard every other stakeholder, both the young, persons with disability, and special interest groups.
At times, there's a mismatch, or rather a disconnect between policy and practice. What are these things that you need to do in between to ensure that whatever is adopted by policy is practically possible and is actually structured and has timelines? What are these things that you guys ought to do, or rather, even if you become a commissioner? Because this is where the critical thing is. There's a different policies. Kenyans are known to write very good policies and very good frameworks. Yeah. But where is this disconnect? What are these things that ought to be done to ensure that whatever is adopted in policy is seen in practice?
I will go back to the field staff where I said we need to make use of them. And why I would go back to them is to establish, for instance, a constituency like Tana River. What works for them may not work for Nairobi County. So I would go back to the person who manages this particular area and ask them to identify what channels of communication work best for a specific county. Because you're right, we could develop policy and say set up YouTube channels, but then it will have zero viewership, it will have nobody following the content. So I will go back to the counties and go to our election experts in the counties and in the constituencies and find out what works for County A, so that what we are implementing is actually what has been proven. If what works is barazas, let's have barazas. If what works is people being sent to attend services or mosque or what, let's have that happen. So I would want to identify from where the election happens, which is at the county and the constituencies. I would want to know from them exactly what works in a specific electoral area.
One thing that corporate bodies have succeeded in is putting into practice policy. And a good practice that they have is usually developing let's say, the standard operating procedures for each and everything, and ensuring that timelines are put, persons responsible, instead of the big, what we call strategic plans, elaborate, that are done by government agencies and policies then shelved.
Yeah, you're right, absolutely.
So maybe, I don't know, it frustrates me, that's why
No, absolutely.
I wasn't really asking you a question on that.
No. You actually raise a very valid point, because I mean, what we want is to know who is doing what works. Did we say barazas are what work for this particular electoral area? Who is responsible? How many barazas do we have? What do we do? I totally agree with you.
And an actual calendar. And one key thing about stakeholder engagements is usually timelines.
Yes, yes.
And there has to be an actual calendar and a timeline.
Yes, a calendar and a mapping out of the stakeholders in every constituency.
Yeah.
You're right, ma'am.
I'm emphasizing this because I know you still are in IEBC.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
The sense of that being done. Thank you so much. I wish you well.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to invite Mr. Nicodemus Bode to ask you some questions, please.
Tobiko.
Yes, sir.
You've indicated that you are one of your roles as a manager of commission services was a link between the staff and the commissioners.
Yes, sir.
I'm sure there are times when there are tensions between the staff and the commission itself. Yeah. Or the commissioners. So can you share a time when you successfully managed the tensions or conflicting expectations between these two groups, and what was your approach?
Thank you, sir. Allow me to go back to 2016, 2017. I cite this because for me that was one training ground. Remember the issues of procurement challenges between the chairperson and the CEO. And like every other Kenyan, the staff of the commission was only consuming what was reported. And granted, there are those who would side with the chair and there are those who would side with the CEO. For one reason or the other, people felt the need to take sides. And I would get countless calls from my colleagues asking exactly what is happening. And what we did, I approached my boss then, Ahmed Isaac Hassan, and I asked him, could we have a teleconference? We organized, we clustered regions, and we were able to have a teleconference. The commissioners would just sit in the boardroom, on the sixth floor, sit in the boardroom, and the specific region that they would be addressing at the time, the region would be together, and they would have a teleconference. And what that helped to do, it helped to ease tension. Actually, sorry, allow me to correct. It was not so much about the issue. It was not procurement. It was the alleged firing of a CEO that it was in the offing, and the commissioners were able to have a conversation, teleconferencing with the staff. And what we did, because it would not have been complete, what we did, I told the chair, bring in the CEO, let him also speak to the staff. And by the CEO being able to speak to the staff in the same meeting with the chair, it helped to diffuse the tension that was there. So that is one such example that I think I was useful in that sense.
Now you have considerable experience with the elections, and one of the complaints from the public is the expensive elections. Maybe just mention in 1 minute, how would you help alleviate the cost of elections, given a chance to serve in the commission?
I wish I, I wish I had a way to say we can bring it down, but perhaps we should look at it as an investment in democracy as a nation. But at the top of my mind, one of the things I would propose is to allow it to be administrative for us to decide and to determine how many polling stations we have. Reducing the number of polling stations evidently will reduce the number of staff we will have, and it will have a bearing on the cost. So I would look at reducing the number of polling stations, and that is only possible if our hands are not tied by the law in as far as the numbers to have per polling station is concerned. If we were given the leeway to have an administrative provision to manage polling stations, it will be a lot easier. I feel like suggesting that we need to print ballot papers locally, but I'm not sure we are yet there in levels of trust as a nation. So for me, the low-hanging fruit would be to reduce the number of polling stations, and it's doable because the levels of literacy in various constituencies differ. So in a constituency where we have relatively, encouraging levels of literacy, you can afford to have bigger polling stations and reduce for those that might have challenges. But this can only happen if our hands are not tied by the law. Should we have the freedom to actually determine what to do, then we can work on that. I'm not sure we are yet at a place where we can have our ballot papers printed locally. We need to invest in our trust. Once we have built on trust, then we can go there. By and large, we will have an inexpensive election.
Thank you, Tobiko, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to invite Professor to ask you some questions, Prof.
Thank you, Chair. Maloshe,
Yes, sir.
let's go hypothetical. You are already in office and operations are going on. You've already told us we are out of time with boundary delimitation as per the Constitution and the law. But let's say that you are in office and you are behind schedule during a critical phase of the electoral process, maybe voter registration, for example. At the Secretariat, you are an implementer.
Yes.
At the Commission, you are a leader. So what kind of leadership would you bring to get things back on track? Let me give you an example. There have been, and you are there have been several audits of the register. Some coming in very late from KPMG, and they are saying close to 1 million people don't need to be there. Then nothing is done about it. Of course, even before the vote is cast, you have already cast as partial. So what leadership will you bring on board?
Thank you, Prof. Thank you. One thing about an election, one guarantee is that something will go wrong, given something will go wrong. So my leadership would be to mitigate that which will go wrong, to make sure that whatever goes wrong is not so significant as to affect the outcome of the election. We have voter registration ongoing, and again, I'm on the hypothetical situation, and I realize that we are not doing well in terms of time, yet we need to conclude so that we move to the next phase. What I would do is, if I'm not able to increase the registration centers, then I would have the registration officers be mobile. Have them be mobile, open the kits, let them go to a market and register people in that market, but with the advice and clarity that whereas we are registering you at the College of Insurance, you will be voting in town center or you'll be voting in this place. I would allow for flexibility so that ultimately what is driving me is being able to onboard as many qualified Kenyans. And that's just one example. I would, if it's any other activity other than voter registration, for me, what I would do is make it easy. Sometimes we put unnecessary bottlenecks, so make it easy. as far as we are not compromising on the credibility and the legitimacy of the process, and we are not breaching the law, I would want to have a situation where we make it easy. And it helps if you have commissioners who can roll their sleeves and get it done. If a commissioner can roll their sleeves and visit a market and help show what is happening, it becomes a lot easier. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My last question on this segment, again, a hypothetical one. You are sitting there as a member of the Secretariat, implementer of many years. You get upgraded to the commission. So suppose while you're a commission, you receive a report that a senior Secretariat staff member has been quietly campaigning for a candidate through online platforms. How would you respond in a manner that would go into upholding the integrity of the commission?
Thank you, Prof. First and foremost, I would work to establish the truth of the matter. The online platform has been abused. So if someone were to say that a member of staff A is campaigning for a certain candidate, there are ways to establish this. But then there's always two sides to a story. I would want to hear why the accuser thinks this member of staff is campaigning for candidate A. And I would want to hear the side of this member of staff. Should I then establish that there is truth in this allegation, then the member of staff will be subjected to disciplinary measures. And if this member of staff, for instance, is in charge of a constituency or a county or any electoral unit for that matter, and is campaigning for a candidate, the first step, once I establish the authenticity of the accusation, would be to move them away from that area so that I don't give them undue advantage this particular, and to appear to be creating a uniform playing field. So if this person was a returning officer, and yes, I established that there are truths to this allegation, I would remove the returning officer from that particular electoral unit, bring and reassign them something else in the head office or somewhere else where they do not necessarily use the position they have to advantage a specific candidate.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I want to ask you to ask your last two questions, please.
Yes, Madam Tobiko, we are in that last segment in which, through the chair, we usually ask high school questions.
Okay.
And we usually start with your area of expertise. And I can see in many of the missions that you have gone to, if I can just highlight a few: ESC pre-election expert to the Republic of Uganda, ESC COMESA pre-election expert mission to Burundi, ESC pre-election expert to the Republic of Tanzania. Is that you?
Yes, sir, that's me.
And therefore, on matters elections and ESC, that's your area.
Yes.
And you know that there's a category of elected members to the East African Legislative Assembly. As an ESC electoral expert, what does the ESC treaty say about elections of EALA members?
Really, Professor. The EAC treaty, that they should represent their member states.
How does it direct member states to elect their members? That's what I want, the electoral bit of how they get into office. What does the treaty direct member states insofar as election of 9 each? Let me break it down. Of 9 each to go and sit in EALA.
I have no idea.
All right, I'll go to another one. which you should know, definitely.
Okay, be kind on that one.
Name 2 African leaders who played key roles in the Pan-African movement. Just 2, there are many.
Okay. Mwalimu Julius Nyerere and Kenneth Kaunda.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Paloshe.
Thank
We
you, sir.
have learned a lot, and I do presume that the audience out there has. I don't know whether you have any comment or question to make.
I do have a question which I do not know how it will be answered, but I have been asking myself as I watch the panel, what exactly, and I'm sure each member of the panel represents a certain constituency and by and large represents the aspirations of many Kenyans. I keep asking myself, what does an ideal EMB look to this panel? I don't know, and perhaps we will not get the answer, but I wonder what an ideal EMB, and maybe Chair, maybe we could get an answer, but what does an ideal EMB for this nation look like to this panel?
I do presume that will be Dr. Koki's
Yes.
training to the new team once it's in office, but not for today. Yes, yes.
When I become, yes, but that for me, Chair, is one thing that has been playing in my mind. But allow me to more sincerely appreciate the panel for shortlisting so many of us from the Secretariat. Thank you so much. We have previously applied. In the last 2021 application, only 2 of us were shortlisted. Mercifully, I was one of them. And yet again, this panel has found it fit not just to shortlist myself, but so many of us. That can only be a testament to the confidence you have in the election management officers of this country. And thank you. I thank you more sincerely. Thank you for making it easy to have this interaction. It was not as tense as I had feared, other than the question by Professor. But thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Professor's questions were meant to be the easiest.
You know about treaties.
Thank you very much, and blessings to you.
Thank you, sir.
You'll find your certificates with one of our officers at the door. And members of the gallery, you may wish to exit or to wait. We still have one more candidate. And so our blessings to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.